One of my work focuses is the connection between food. That's why a lot of you are here today. Culture, genetics. That's a big part of a lot of our diagnosis, chronic disease, and just especially communities that are often disproportionately affected in areas such as high blood pressure. Our main topic, we're going to talk about the foods and healing properties today, diabetes, and especially chronic inflammation. And as you can tell, me and Dr. J, we're so passionate about helping people understand that healing doesn't only happen in the doctor's office with medication, but it also happens in the kitchen, in the grocery store, and just the daily habits that you implement in your life every single day. And just over the years, I've just seen how powerful it is when people are given the right information, which you're going to receive today, and just the realistic tools. And it's just the small, small changes that when you do them consistently, you can truly transform your health the same way I have, the same way Dr. J has. And it's not just for individuals, it's for everyone. So this information, don't just hoard it and keep it to yourself. Share it with your entire family so it can go past to generations, and build a new legacy of great health for your future generations. And that's just really the heart behind today's session. And today is not only about perfection, it's about also progress. So it's about learning how food and the food that we eat, not just food that in the westernized culture, but our ancestral foods, is a tool that can actually support your health alongside your medical care. So at this time, I'm also honored to be doing the work with an amazing colleague and my co-presenter, Dr. Joanne Mapis Shepkong, who will share a little bit about herself and her journey as well. Over to you.
I'm talking, but I'm mute. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be back here to further carry on this mission. I call it a mission of changing the world, one meal at a time, one decision at a time. As Dr. O mentioned, my name is Dr. Gachimo Joanne Mapis Shepkong. I am a pharmacist by training, also a public health practitioner. So I have public health PhD in community health. So those are my main focus and interests. Outside of that, I do own a food truck and we promote Nigerian food, plant-based focused Nigerian food, which is different from pretty much everything you have experienced if you go out looking for, say, African food or food trucks in general. Most of the foods that are offered are highly, should I say, processed. But beyond that, it's mostly meat based because, as a plant based practitioner, most times when I go to these events, it's very difficult to patronize other food trucks because they really don't have options that are plant based. So I always get these customers that say, "Thank you so much for being here because you're one of the only places I can eat at these type of events." So we are doing the Lord's work, for lack of better words. And beyond that, I do a lot of community engagement, community events, and the focus has always been to propel the word forward when it comes to health and healing. And as an African diaspora, we have gotten so used to embracing the life where we are, which I'm all for assimilation and acculturation, don't get me wrong. But there are some areas that we really need to take a step back and say, maybe our great grandparents had a system that was working. You know, they may know something that we lack, even though we have all the degrees that there are to have and all the certifications. We have all these paperwork, but we don't communicate with nature and we don't listen to our bodies the way they did a good job with listening to their bodies and saying, you know what, this, I ate it, I got bloated, I'm not eating it again. How many times do we eat things that we know gave us a headache and we still eat it the next day, right? And so we are here to hopefully get you geared up, get you excited about the foods you eat, and not look at food as some form of, or eating healthy as some form of punishment, like, oh, I can't believe I got to do this again. Like you should get excited about eating foods that are going to add to your health. Because for me, from my journey, my experience, and I shared this the last time, my journey came from using myself as the guinea pig. You know, I was able to transform and heal myself. And now I can say, because of that, I am able to have three children when the doctors told me I couldn't have a child, essentially because of my age, my hepatitis background, my fibroids background, or whatever it is. And I have learned, so I'm preaching the gospel according to food, because I have learned that food is indeed medicine and has worked for me. And when people say, no, food has nothing to do with it, I shake my head all the time, because I know you haven't tried it. Because if you try it, you will also be a disciple of food is medicine. So before I get carried away and too excited about this, let's get started. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. I actually tasted her delicious food, and it was at a food truck carnival. And let's just say her line was longer than the lines at the theme parks. Like it was so long. I waited in line just to have the experience, even though I have access, but her food is delicious, it's healthy, and I felt great that I could still have my ancestral foods and not be guilty that, I probably ate a processed version of it. So thank you so much, Dr. J. And if you can see the screen here, look, this is the agenda. We last time in part one, we talked about understanding the problem while we're at risk, food as medicine foundations. And now today for part two, we're going to go into the practical tools that you can use for your whole family. We're going to give you a recipe you can take home with you. We're going to talk about food as medicine foundations and the foods to help with those foundations as well. So this is going to be a section on part two. And for part one, you can always watch it first because I know you're going to be able to connect the dots. But in part two, now we're going to get to the fun part. We talked about the anatomy and the physiology and the drug interactions with food and how it affects diabetes and hypertension. But now we're going to go deep dive into how our ancestral foods can actually help you heal. So now you don't feel left out in the family gatherings. You can still eat with your family because culture is food, culture is experience, and culture tells your story, but with a healthy choice. So now for part two, before we go into part two, just a little bit more about part one. We talked about why African and immigrant communities, why we're actually facing a higher risk for hypertension and diabetes. We talked about our genetics and we talked about nutrigenomics, how nutrition and genes are connected. We talked about stress in a new environment in the Western world. We talked about the environment and actually having access to food because there's so many food deserts in certain communities where we don't have access to the fresh produce. We also talked about how our bodies respond differently to things like salt, sugar, fats, and inflammation. So we're going to connect the dots today. And just one example is that someone of African descent naturally kidneys hold on to salt. So that's why a lot of people with African descent have hypertension. And it also has to do with the environment because if you were in that tropical climate that you once were, you'll be sweating more. So that's why genetically our bodies was designed to have hold on to more salt. So it's not like you're losing all your electrolytes. But now imagine living in the Midwest like Dr. J or living in the Northeast region of the US like Dr. O. Now your chances are higher because now genetically your kidneys hold on to more salt. So we're going to explain how environment, etc., affects everything. But this is some things we talked about in our previous session. And then we also talked about food is not just calories and plugging in numbers. The math is math and math is none of that. It's actually information we're going to learn today, and it sends signals to your body and even to your genes. So now I'm going to go on to our first slide in part two. This is just a recap of part one. All right. So for the recap, additional recap of part two. So if you ever wondered why, also I mentioned with the kidneys, why you have salt sensitivity, now you learn today that genetically, if you're of African American descent or African, or even if you have 45%, a lot of people are taking genetic tests and DNA tests to find out, their ancestry. If you're even a percentage of this background, you may have some sensitivity. So maybe that's why you're thinking about diabetes risk in your family or hypertension, or even about yourself or your family members. So this should all make sense today. But what do we actually do with the information is what's going to be important today. So now I want to turn it over to Dr. J, who is going to talk about the foundations and everyday strategies that you can add to your life with food to help with blood sugar regulation and blood pressure control.
Thank you so much, Dr. O.
You're welcome.
Wonderful, wonderful recap. One of the things I wanted to add to that is the idea of why our genes are so different from um, maybe the Caucasians, or should I say, currently, how our genes impact our environment. As Africans, we grew up in a world where or should I say, our ancestors used to have a cycle of famine versus feasting, right? Because food wasn't readily available, it wasn't accessible where you can just eat, show up to the store, and there's 20 different varieties of bread to choose from, or 50 different options of beef. I don't know why we have so many options, but there's 10 different types of coconut oil. You don't know which one to pick. You know what I'm saying? So there are so many options today that your body, what it used to do was, when you have that moment of famine, your body would use that food that you ate during feasting. So your body understood when to hold on to food because it knows that you're going to be in famine next week. However, now what is happening is, and this is because of our ancestral background, what is happening today is we don't have that issue of feasting and famine. So because we're not fasting or farming, we're always feasting. But our bodies, remember, your body is going based on a foundation of 3 million years. It doesn't know what is going on in 2026. So because of that, your body is still holding on to food because it's waiting for that moment of famine. So it would release all those nutrients for you to use. But you never go into famine. So guess why? Most times when you see people of African descent, we tend to hold on to weight more so than other people because of the simple fact that our bodies are not releasing these foods because our genes are telling our brains, hold on, she's going to lack food next week. Make sure you keep this food for next week's use. But next week, you still had 3 giant bowls of pounded yam. So your body doesn't know what to do with all these food that you're consuming. So in order for us to be able to help with strategies for reducing this blood sugar and blood pressure, we need to think about what Dr. O said in terms of our bodies responding to the sun and a lot of these electrolytes being lost. But now you're sitting, I haven't seen the sun in I don't know how long. So my body doesn't have an opportunity to sweat and release some of this salt that is holding onto. So now I'm holding onto fluid, which is increasing my blood pressure. So what do you need to do? You need to find a way and escape to go sweat somewhere. I don't care what you do. You don't need to go to the gym. You can find a sauna. You can go jump. You can walk, whatever you need to do, but you need to release all these electrolytes that your body is hold on to because your biology doesn't recognize that there's no sun where you live. Your biology says she's releasing too much, so I need to hold on to some of this because I don't know what's going to happen. And it's the same thing when it comes to the blood sugar. We cannot consume the way our ancestors consumed in the environment that we live in. Or we have to learn to feast and fast. Those are our options in order for us to help with the the glucose sensitivity or the insulin sensitivity. We have to mimic how our grandparents used to eat. I grew up in a world where we ate. I still remember the schedule in my head because it was the same schedule for years growing up. First of all, back home, people used to be up by 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so they wake up so early and you have breakfast maybe 7, 8. You eat lunch by 11, and by 6 o'clock, you have dinner. I know that was my schedule in my house for years, and it wasn't unique to my house. That was the standard. That's how most people ate. If you're a farmer, you eat that 6 o'clock and you go to the farm and you don't eat again until you come back around at 6 in the evening. So you have these 12 hours of what? Fasting. So your body is not constantly consuming. There was no snacking all day in between. So your insulin or your pancreas has the opportunity to regulate the release of that insulin to manage that glucose so you can keep your glucose under control, because we know today that insulin sensitivity is a big problem. Because what do we say? Oh, the main cause of diabetes, hypertension, Alzheimer's is insulin resistance. Everybody is throwing the word insulin resistance. And why are we creating insulin resistance? Because of the fact that we are constantly eating. That pancreas don't know what to do with itself. It's like, think about you as an individual. If you're going to work 24 hours and you never get a chance to sit down, are you going to like that job? You're going to get burnt out and you're going to quit. And when you quit, that's insulin resistance, right? And we don't want to get to that point of quitting because your body's like, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. So we need to increase that fiber, because our traditional foods, again, we're going back to ancestral diet. If you eat the foods your great grandparents ate, it's very high in fiber. The cassava is high in fiber. The yam is high in fiber. The sweet potatoes are high in fiber. It's not necessarily about eliminating the foods, but you can't consume this much of them, because we already understand now why we can't eat like our forefathers used to eat. Nobody's going to the farm here. Nobody is moving around walking 10 miles in a day. Nobody is out in the sun all day creating vitamin D that helps with metabolism. We're just sitting at a desk for 10 hours. So we can't eat as much, but those foods are high in fiber and they're going to help us. Also, same thing with potassium-rich foods, the plantains, the avocados. Most of our foods, our traditional foods, are very high in leafy greens. The moringas, the spinach, those are our traditional vegetables that we used to eat. The neems, the dandelions, they're actually part of our traditional foods. If we just go back to those ugus and all of these vegetables that our parents or our great grandparents used to use, we're going to get all the nutrients we need. And of course, everything in America is packed full of sugar or salt. Again, just throw it all in the trash. Go back to how your great grandmother ate, and you won't even have to worry about this high sugar and high fat, because you're not eating packaged foods that are packed with them. You're not eating foods. If you eat wholesome foods, you never have to worry about high sugar or high salt. Because guess what? You yourself are not going to put 3 scoops of salt in your food when you cook it. You're not going to be able to enjoy it. But they know how to manipulate those salts that you don't taste it to be so salty, but it's so salty. So cook the food yourself, and then you can eliminate some of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. J. I loved everything she said. Yes, the feast and the famine. Like, people are insulin resistant because the machine has never time to rest. The phone never has time to charge. You just keep using a dead phone. So you have to keep fasting and then you feast. So that's why we were able to eat like that, like what she mentioned back in the day. But now it's like going to the gym is even artificial, like Dr. J mentioned. We were naturally made to move, to walk, to do things, even as washing dishes, clean your house, walk down the street. We weren't supposed to be on the treadmill for 1 hour and say, that's my movement for the day. So that
Right.
has a lot to do with how our body's reacting and malfunctioning and being inflamed. And I really love how you mentioned going back to, our ancestral foods, because a lot of people are just using artificial seasonings. And the thing about it is that with diabetes and hypertension, if you have a salt sensitivity, one of the main foods like that we Dr. J mentioned is avocado. She mentioned our leafy greens, cassava, and even foods like plantain. These actually help to balance sodium in the body. So this is especially important for populations that we have higher salt sensitivity like us, where we have excess sodium that can actually raise our blood pressure a lot more quickly. So I also wanted to mentioned that a lot of added sugars and salt-heavy seasonings, people are just not going back to ancestral techniques like Dr. J mentioned. Instead of using all these seasonings, I mean, yes, I know we're in a fast-paced world and people don't have time to make their own flavors, but you can go back to our ancestral methods where you add herbs and onions and garlic and ginger and peppers and make your food flavorful that way instead of using the seasonings. Or if you're going to use the seasonings, read it to make sure the only seasoning in there is pepper versus all the artificial ingredients that they add to it to preserve the actual seasoning. Believe it or not, you have to read your seasonings. And finally, Dr. J also mentioned veggies, the veggie first plate. That's like a term we use in the whole dietetics world. And this basically means vegetables should take up a larger portion of your plate. She mentioned that large pound of yam, and I laughed, but it's like I've seen so much content on people eating like 20 pounds of pound of yam and flexing, but that's not a flex. So it's like make sure the portion of your plate is mostly vegetables that provide fiber, like she mentioned, and the antioxidants. And they actually produce the anti-inflammatory compounds and it actually makes you feel fuller and it makes your body metabolize the sugars from the carbohydrates at a lower level. Since we're not, back in the days where we're walking probably 30,000 steps in a day. So just remember with the veggie first, put your veggies first. Let that be the first thing you eat. Or I know that the way we eat our food, we usually have the soup on one side or the pounded yam or cassava or on the other side, and then you eat it together. So then before you eat that meal, have a vegetable meal first, and then eat your
I would
meal.
add to that, not even really having a vegetables first separately per
Mhm.
se, but I'm accused of finishing the soup in my house, because my theory is the soup is the food. The yam or the fufu or the whatever is actually just an added energy. So get more of the soup. It's packed full of nutrients, except if you make it the way we do it today, which is just meat. I don't even see soup, it's meat and then a little bit of vegetable on the side. Get the veggies, eat the veggies. From that soup, you don't have to eat salad because Africans, we're not big on salad. So I'm not encouraging you, oh, yeah, you got to go eat salad if you want to stay healthy. You don't have to ever eat salad a day in your life and you can lose 150 pounds.
She's absolutely correct. And no, I love it. No, you're absolutely correct. And I love how you mentioned your routine when you were back home and just of how, your eating patterns. Because I remember every time I go back home to visit my family, everybody goes out to work and nobody's even thinking about, the gym at 5 a.m. or lifting weights. Everybody works and everything. And literally, they already automatically practice OMAD, which is one meal a day, and they'll just eat that one meal. And everybody's super lean, super strong, and you would think they're out here doing Pilates and yoga and lifting heavy, but meanwhile they just moved all day, probably did about 50,000 steps and ate one meal a day, but it was nutritious, healthy, non-processed food. So, and then I practiced that. So when I came back from Nigeria to America, everybody was like, "What, did you lost weight?" I'm like, I didn't even do anything. I enjoyed myself, but I ate healthy food and I wasn't constantly eating throughout the day. So I love how you mentioned your lifestyle and when you were doing. So that was actually fast and feast every single day because they were only eating within that window. And it wasn't even intentional. That was just their lifestyle. But
Oh, well,
now it's like,
there was no word as intermittent fasting, but now today that's what that is. You'd stop
yeah.
eating by 6 p.m. and you don't eat again until the next day around 6, 7, which is again a 12-hour window. What we are learning now as a breakthrough in medicine. But
Yes.
great grandparents have been doing it for millennia. Nobody gave them any credit. I
Hmm.
digress.
Yes, no, I actually love it. And I saw some of your content. I hope you all follow Dr. Gachamo on Facebook. But she mentioned something that I feel like everybody should be convicted today. there's one thing that every single religion agrees with, and it's fasting. Everybody argues, oh, my religion is the best, the best, best. But the one thing that every single religion does is fasting. So if you don't remember anything today, just remember incorporate fasting into your lifestyle. That when I had goosebumps when I read that, or maybe I'm just dramatic, but I I
But
I thought that was
can argue about who the God is or how to worship the God, but we all agree that the closer to God, if you want to get closer to God, and regardless of your faith, you would feel a spiritual connection when you fast and you fast consistently. Trust me. I don't
yes.
here to preach any God. Sure.
Yes, thank you so much. And so now for our next slide, food as medicine, the foundations. I know one of the biggest concerns that people have when we talk about nutrition is, does this mean I have to give up my culture foods? Absolutely not. The answer is no. The goal is not to erase your culture. The goal is to actually adapt tradition in a way that supports your health in today's environment. Because think about it, you're in the Western world, you're in the United States of America, or even if you're in another country or even in Nigeria, I've seen that, now there's been some more processed foods incorporated into the culture of people back home too as well. So this also is applicable to you. But culturally relevant food swaps are about keeping the foods you love, but just adjusting how they're prepared and how often they're eaten as well, and how much is on the plate, like we mentioned earlier. So, for example, instead of eating white rice every day, you can rotate it in brown rice, fonio, millet, or even you can mix white rice and half brown rice, or you can mix half white rice and cauliflower rice. Because I know a lot of people say they don't like cauliflower's rice texture, but when you mix it in, that way you can have like a whole lot more rice, and then you trick your brain that you're actually having more of the white rice when you're mixing the cauliflower rice with the white rice, and then you can put your stew, etc., on there. And this will actually help to improve your blood sugar control because now you have that cauliflower, that vegetable mixed in with that starch. Boom. That's a trick. And then if you enjoy dishes like jollof rice or fried rice, one simple swap is to increase the vegetables and just reduce the rice portion. Like, you know what Dr. J said? She said she's the soup finisher. I'm like, this is my twin sister because everybody said this girl just drinks soup like it's juice, like it's water, but it's like it's the most nutritious part of the meal, and it even makes it more flavorful when you have all that soup on it. So for foods like fufu and pounded yam or even eba, just remember your portion size matters, but so does the base. And we have a recipe we're going to share later. So you can experiment with unripe plantain, oat fufu, or blends that include like fiber-rich ingredients to help slow down your blood sugar spikes while still keeping the texture and the tradition you're used to. So, like what Dr. J said, you don't have to be eating a salad while your family's eating amala and begari, or you don't have to be sitting out eating a salad while your family's eating, dumplings, and then we have people from different international countries here. Or you don't have to be eating a salad when your family's eating a vegetable pie, or even Somalian food, or wherever country you're from. Like you can actually still eat it, enjoy it, but in a healthier way. And then when it comes to stews and soups like egusi or albana or okra or even vegetable soup, just the swap isn't about removing the soup, it's about what you serve it with and how it's cooked. So you can increase the vegetables, use leaner proteins if you're someone that eats, animal proteins, like leaner proteins like fish and skinless chicken, and just to reduce the amount of palm oil because the way they're making palm oil in the US is not the way they were making palm oil back home. And then also you can use, or what you can do if you need that palm oil texture to remind you of a memory of palm oil back home, you can do a mixture of healthier oils instead of the larger portions of palm oil. But honestly, in all honesty, you don't need palm oil to actually cook your beans or cook certain stews, and it'll still taste exactly the same. And then another big area is your cooking method. So I know that many traditional foods are deliciously fried, but frying every day adds a lot of inflammatory fats and extra calories. But today we're not focusing on calories, we're focusing on healing. So swapping frying for baking, So I know people say, oh, it doesn't taste the same, but you could try, plantain, you could do, there's so many methods that even reminds us of back home. You can boil your plantains, you can bake them. In Nigerians, we call it boli. You can bake them and it still reminds you of back home. You don't have to fry it every single time. You can grill if you eat fish, or so you can grill, you can actually air fry, or you can also reduce the amount of oil if you do fry your plantain by wiping it down. You'll be surprised how much oil goes on that paper towel. And then also, you can just dramatically reduce the strain on your heart and your blood vessels while you keep the flavor and the profile familiar. So now you have your air fried plantain, you have your jollof rice mixed in with cauliflower rice. So you trick yourself that it's rice, and then maybe everybody else is influenced by you and they're doing the same thing, or they're eating their own. Everything looks exactly the same, but yours is heart healthy, anti-inflammatory. It's not going to spike your blood sugar. So, for example, instead of deep frying your plantains, you can air fry them, you can bake them. Instead of frying your fish, you can grill them and you can bake them in delicious spices. And then drinks are another powerful place to make changes. If you drink Zobo in America and you drink Zobo here, there's a drastic difference, unless it depends on who's making them. But I know I drank Zobo back home and I drank Zobo here, and the Zobo here looked like somebody got angry and poured the whole sugar inside the drink. Meanwhile, like the bitters of the Zobo back home is more nutritious, and what they add in it, the hibiscus and stuff that actually helps with your heart health versus drenching it, in sugar. So many people, they regularly drink sweetened juices, sodas, or even malt drinks. I would say a simple swap for this is infused water with ginger, cucumber. You can put citrus, or you could do cold pressed juice. Juice. A lot of people always say, "Oh, I'm watching my sugar." I'm like, everybody got it all wrong. In the nutrition space, when we say watch your sugar, we're not talking about from fruits. We're talking about sugar, the added on that package of chips, the sugar, and then the sneaky added sugar. That's what we're talking about. But when it comes to healthy, everybody wants to say, oh, I'm not your body. I can't eat fruits anymore. Like you're missing out on so much phytonutrients if you're not eating the rainbow. And our ancestral foods, we have so many, the
I
diverse. Oh, yes, Dr. J.
have to cut you just for a second. I apologize.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that I don't lose this. To go back to our ancestral diet, think about your genetics. Fruits can be bad, but where are you from? Did you grow up in a world where your great grand my rule for you today, if you forget everything, is what would my great grandmother eat? Did they eat fruits? Did they have diabetes? They did not. We come from the tropics. Our body recognizes fruits and knows how to digest them. The problem comes when we are not doing the things our great grandparents were doing, fasting and farming. And also this whole idea of fried foods. Like our grandparents did not fry foods. So most of these things that we're doing, we didn't eat them, we didn't fry them, we didn't consume. We fermented our foods. We fermented foods. So are you eating fermented foods? Are you eating fried foods? Are you eating foods? We didn't have sugar. Sugar did not exist. We got sugar cane, but we didn't have sugar. So, and we were not drenching the sugar cane to get all the juice out of it and pouring it into other foods. No, you ate the sugar cane. That's the sugar you had. So today, if we can just reconsider, we'll help ourselves and do ourselves a lot of good. So it's not an issue of juice. I mean, fruits have a bad rep. I just have to say, Dr. O Juice, because you got juices every day. You are supplying the world, and people are saying juices are bad because they're packed of fruits. And yes, they can be if you are not genetically created. Just like keto works for some people, but it doesn't work for you because you didn't come from a world where people ate meat all day. So your genetics doesn't recognize that. It will work for you temporarily, but you're going to see the back effect. And it's the same thing with the fruits. If you ate fruits modestly, you're not drinking juices every day, all day, and replacing it with soda. You should just eliminate the idea of soda altogether because it's not in your traditional diet. Like let's go back to the traditional diet and then we can start the conversation from there. Did your people eat this? Nope. Okay, trash. It's not our food, you know? And if you eat that millet fufu, because that's what we used to use to make fufu in my parts of the world, it was either fonio or millet. If you use fonio or millet, guess what? They're low in carbs. So you're not gonna have those spikes. And therefore you can eat your fufu. It's not necessarily like, oh, you have to be very, very, very careful. Yes, you're not gonna eat as much because you're sitting and you're not active, but you can eat those foods and not have those negative effects if you stick to how they made it. We didn't use to microwave the food all day, you know, just to add to that. Because
No, I
we
know
want to
I absolutely love it because I believe that health is not about abandoning who you are or who we are. It's about just making the small, smart adjustments so that our culture can continue to nourish us and not harm us. And that even brings me to the next slide that I'm going to allow you to to take over. But I just wanted to mention that I feel like a very common belief, because I know a lot of people are looking at dollar signs, looking at their bank account. I feel like a very common belief is that people feel eating is healthy is expensive, but in reality, what often costs the most is eating without a plan. That's what I feel makes it expensive. And when meals are not planned, people tend to rely more on fast food, packaged foods, last minute choices, which are just usually more expensive and just less nutritious. So I wanted you to just go over some ways that you make healthy eating affordable, because I follow your page and I see she has three children. They're always eating healthy fresh produce. They're drinking smoothies. They're eating ancestral foods. I saw a post yesterday that instead of chocolate you actually made a cultural food. Like, I follow everything, like, give me ideas. So I just want to know, like, what are some ways or some strategies that you can help some people here so they can still eat healthy and not break the bank.
absolutely. Thank you, Dr. O. So the big thing is recognizing that it's a myth. Eating healthy and expensive is a misnomer. Actually, it's cheaper to eat healthy. It really is. In my house, we're plant-based. I go to the store because I own a restaurant. And whenever I go to buy that meat, I'm crying because I don't understand how people pay so much. It's so expensive to eat meat. You know, in my house, rice and beans, do you know a bag of rice, $5 would last me a week? I'm not kidding. I have three children and they eat. They don't taste the food. They eat like grown-ups. And I can buy a bag of rice, bag of beans, bag of lentils, you know. Again, legumes are our traditional foods. I'm gonna keep, you're gonna hear me in your sleep tonight when you go home, you know, traditional foods. What would your grandmother eat? Because legumes are our traditional foods. They're cheap. Tomatoes are not the most expensive thing you will find in the market. So what I would do, I typically do a couple of things. One, I know the store. I shop at Kroger. I don't know where you shop typically. And I know that Kroger puts their stuff on sale on Sunday. Okay. So Sundays, I go to Kroger and I pack food. I get enough salad to last me the whole week because I already know they're going from $3.99 to $1.70. And I'm gonna buy 10 of them because I have three kids and salad is one of their favorite things. Believe it or not, people say children do not like vegetables. They only don't like vegetables because you never taught them to eat vegetables. My kids eat salad for breakfast and they dance when I say we can have a salad. Oh yes, you know, they get excited. Why? Because it's just a part of our daily life. So I go and I find sales. Produce aisle. I don't go into the store. When I go into a store, the first place I go is the produce section. Because if you can read 20 ingredients, it's not food, it's food like substance. First thing you do is find the produce and find the dry goods. We love rice, we as Africans. Rice, quinoa, fonio, all of these things. Fonio is my traditional food. I grew up with it. So I go home and I bring big jags of it because here they'll sell you this little fonio for $5. Oh, hell no. I get a whole 50 pound for the same amount when I go home. Now, because it's popular, it's becoming more expensive because now the world wants to buy all of it out of the country, you know? So that's one thing. My baby's here. So there's the food that you have to eat like that. You buy the dry goods, you go and find the sales on the produce, and then you think about like the tubers. Most of the time, I go to, yes, Sora. Huh? You're hungry? Okay, I'm coming. You see, they're hungry already. Mind you, they have smoothie for breakfast. It's time for lunch. But anyways, when I go to the store, I focus on the foods that I know. Sweet potatoes, they're not the most expensive things. And then I go to local stores like the Asian stores, the Mexican stores, the African stores. I know that they will have the kind of foods that I'm looking for, you know. And lastly, leafy greens, you just pack full of those. You won't have to worry too much. If you love the meat, you some of these like sardines, they're not the most expensive things and they're pretty much very healthy, you know, in terms of meat options. When we're talking about fish, they're a healthier alternative compared to the choices that are out there. And you mentioned chicken breast or chicken. Chicken is one of the cheapest meat options out there. So if you eat the fish and the chickens, you pretty much covered. They're not the most expensive options that you would have. And as noted, meal planning. When you go to the store hungry, we all know what happens. We buy everything in that store that is unhealthy, guaranteed. You're looking for chips, you're looking for soda, you're looking for whatever it is that you want to eat right now to make you feel better. And you tend to buy those things and take home. If you eliminate most of the processed foods, you'll notice you're saving a lot of money. If you eat more wholesome, you're going to save a lot of money. I buy frozen vegetables a lot because they're way cheaper. And the same thing with frozen fruits. They're way, way cheaper because if you buy fresh fruits and vegetables, guess what? 2, 3 days, if you don't use them, they start to go bad. But if you buy frozen, you can keep them for weeks and you don't have to worry. And if you're looking at it price per ounce, you get more for your money if you buy frozen. And nobody eats canned food here, right? We know to stay away from canned food. So we're not eating canned. We're getting frozen so that they will last longer. We're planning our meals. We eat pretty much similar things all the time. So it's easier for you to pick your foods. And if you're experimenting, I do experimentation when the food is on sale. Ooh, they have zucchini on sale this week. Guess what we're trying this week? We're trying a new zucchini recipe. You know, that's how we're eating. Oh, mommy, what is that? Oh, a new thing we're trying. You know how we like to try new foods, right? We're turning it into a game. Everybody is going to eat it at the end of the day. And again, meal prepping, balancing, packing those vegetables as much as possible, it goes a whole long way. And when you're full with the vegetables, you tend to eat less of the carbs. You know, the rule on how you eat, you start with the vegetables. I know they say start with the protein. I say start with the vegetable. You can have your protein and then you can save the carbs for the very end. Because then by you're kind of full, and the rule also says you want to eat till you're about 80%. You don't want to eat until you can't move. That's the Niger way, you know. I don't know about where you all are from, but where I come from, you eat until you cannot move. And we're not doing that in 2026. We're eating and we're stopping at 80% and we're saving the rest of the food for later. It's okay. You can put it in the refrigerator. We're not in the feasting days of our forefathers where they don't know where the next meal is coming from. We know where it's coming from, our fridge. Put it in the fridge. You can have it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. I love I feel like it's easy to remember when you speak because you make great examples and you're also hilarious. So that's amazing. So the next thing here that we're going to talk about, and Dr. J already talked, about affordable meal planning, but I just wanted to talk about seasonal produce because affordability comes with what's in season. So we're in an environment where everything is available at all times. But if you go back home, you notice that in certain seasons, there's certain produce. But over here, everything's available all the time. However, be mindful of that because when it's not watermelon season, we always have watermelons, but then it'll be the seedless watermelons. Watch out for that. Get the watermelons with the seeds. So I often say that your health choices, it begins in the grocery store. So before they ever reach the kitchen. So what you buy determines what you eat, especially on a busy, stressful day. So that's rule number one. Never, ever, ever, ever go to the grocery store hungry because you're going to grab something they're most likely not good for you. And then just keeping your shopping list simple, like what Dr. J mentioned, plan a few meals, like she mentioned, and just choosing seasonal because those most likely won't be as expensive because they're in season, or just budget-friendly options, like Dr. J mentioned, the frozen produce versus the avocado that's going to spoil in 3 days. So just healthy eating options so that are more sustainable. And then when you do plan, you save money, you reduce waste because we're also about the environment. And then you also reduce the decision fatigue, like trying to figure out like, oh, what are we eating today? When you just have a plan, okay, Monday this, Tuesday this, Wednesday this, Thursday, Friday, remix, and then the next thing. And then another important part of affordable meal planning is just repetition, like Dr. J mentioned. And then you don't need a brand new menu every single day, just rotating a few healthy options that are familiar cultural foods that'll make your shopping easier. So that way you can also cook faster because a lot of people are in busy seasons in their life. You can cook faster, you can batch cook, have your all your stews made on whatever day of the week you're less busy and put them in the fridge and then putting them aside and you can warm it on the stove and just make sure that you're consistent. And then also healthy eating should not feel overwhelming or complicated because you're least likely going to do it if it's overwhelming and complicated. And then when the meals are simple, because our ancestors ate simple meals, they they the harvest was what they had for their planned meals, and they were built around whole foods. Nothing was packaged. And it just becomes easier to maintain a healthy habit over time. So over here, I don't know if you were able to take a picture on your screen, but this just shows some fall fruits. These are probably really more affordable now. I think we're in fall. Are we in winter? See, I don't even know what month it is, but in the fall, this is more affordable. And these are more affordable vegetables in the fall as well. But if you try to get them off season, they might be a little bit more expensive because we're in environment where everything's available all the time, which is not always a good thing because it's going to be more expensive and you may get genetically modified versions of it, like seedless watermelon. So now Dr. J is going to talk a little bit about juicing. And next, I'm just going to give like just a short testimonial on this specific type of juice. Over to you.
So juicing is my baby, my bread and butter, even though it's your life. But you know, I I believe in the idea of juicing because truly it has saved my life. And I don't want to sound emotional about it or dramatic, but it is in fact what has taken me from that woman that really accepted the world's definition of what health and healing was to the woman I am today. So, first, why do we juice? There's a lot of bad rep on juicing today. And a lot of it comes from this idea that your food is already masticated and you should be digesting your food yourself. You shouldn't have, when you use a juicer, it breaks down the food and this, that, and the other. But guys, if you have gut problems, which a lot of us do, I, I would venture to say 70 to 80% of us are dealing with some kind of gut microbiome problem. And therefore, if you want to be able to heal, because what is that challenge with the gut we're talking about? It's all called inflammation. Whatever pain, whatever challenge, whatever situation, wherever you feel anything, anywhere, it's all inflammation, right? It's your body trying to tell you that something is not working and you need to fix it. Now, if your gut, if you're dealing with bloating, if you're dealing with diarrhea, you're dealing with constipation, you're dealing with indigestion of any form, you're dealing with GERD or some kind of acid reflux disease, anything that falls within these categories are telling you that your gut microbiome needs some help, right? And in order for you to help it, we use these juices because how many people can sit and eat a whole stalk of celery? I know I can't. And then on top of that celery, include beets or ginger and chew them all down and get them all in your system. You're not going to be able to. You will not. Even the goats that are living on these things, they can't do it. They eat very limited amount. So for us to be able to get all the nutrients that are in that beet, in that ginger, in that celery, in that grapefruit, whatever fruit or vegetable you choose to juice, you would get a concentrated amount of that nutrient and you're putting the fiber aside. Are we saying fiber is not good? Of course not. We just talked about how great fiber is. But this is temporary. This is for healing modalities. So we're going to do this to help heal our bodies. And if you do this consistently for a period of time, what you're going to end up with is better health, better digestion, better skin, better everything. Your blood pressure is just going to go down miraculously. You wouldn't even know what happened. Now all of a sudden you have good blood pressure. Ooh, your doctor just told you that you're not diabetic anymore. What do you mean I'm not diabetic? You told me I'll be diabetic for the rest of my life. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Some remission, some miracle. I don't know, but maybe it's the juice. No, it can't be the juice. Juice doesn't cure anybody. The doctor is not going to tell you that your diet had anything to do with it. But in truth, it has everything to do with it. So these things, if you stay on them and you're consistent and you give yourself, I always tell every client I have, you got to be patient. It took you 40 years, 30 years, whatever, how many years, 50 years to create all of these problems. You want to fix it in 2 weeks. Impossible. Give yourself 6 months to a year and you will be shocked if you stay consistent with the juicing because they're low. If you're concerned about your sugar level, I'll give you that. Don't juice grapes, okay? I love grape juice, but I know what grape juice is doing to my sugar at that moment I'm drinking it. Pew, 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 off the chain, you know? Don't do it. You can do the beets, you can do the ginger, you can do the lime and lemon, you can do all the greens in the world. Nobody has ever told you that greens creates problem. Drink all the greens you can get your hands on. Trust me. Mom. You'll be telling your testimony. You'll be the one on the next presentation, and I'll be sitting here clapping because of what this juicing has done for you. If there's anything else there is to say, I don't know what it is.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. And I'm going to try to stick as closely to the ending time as possible, but I definitely want to share a little bit more about beets and then give you guys a recipe that you can use. So one thing for me is like beets saved my life as well, beet juice and juicing in general, because I was diagnosed with hypertension. And I say was because it was past tense. And when I started juicing beets, that's when everything changed. The diagnosis went away. I no longer was hypertensive. And I'm telling you, almost every single person in my family, whether they're fit and active or whatever their body shape is, has hypertension. So I want to explain that beets for me, I know that it's just one of my favorite functional foods because of how powerful they support circulation. Because some people may be wondering what the benefits are and the blood flow. And beets are just rich in natural nitrates. And these nitrates, just to go on a physiology level, they expand your arterioles. So that constriction that's actually making your blood pressure go higher, it now allows the blood to flow. So then it lowers your blood pressure. So this is why, my body was able to convert the nitric oxide and allow my body to actually, my blood pressure to decrease. So nitric oxide, it just helps relax your blood vessels. It helps to improve your blood flow and it helps to just support a healthy blood pressure. So if you're someone that, you have hypertension or it runs in your family, you can just incorporate beet juice into your schedule. And, an easy way to remember the ingredients, just remember your ABCs, ABC. A for apple, B for beets, C for carrots. If you like a little bit of spice, you can add some ginger in it and it's very delicious. And this also is often what I use to support a healthy heart and for inflammation. And many people, like my clients, say they notice improvements in their energy because everybody is burnt out, whether it's work, family, school, friends, life, burnt out. So this helps with more energy. And then even if you exercise, everyone's saying protein, 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 protein. Actually, a lot of times I can be fasting and I'm lifting very heavy at the gym. And it's because I have my beet juice as my pre-workout drink or even nothing. And then I have as my post-workout drink. So it's a staple part of my diet. Just remember, if you are on, I just want to make this disclaimer. If you are on any type of medications, I just want to state that food supports your body, but it's not going to replace your medical care. I'm just saying this, it replaced mine, but just make sure to always consult with your medical provider before you start it. But I just want to let you know that the beets does the same thing as the hypertension medication, so you don't want to take those together because it's going to be like you're overdosing. So just consult with your healthcare provider. I know we're both healthcare providers here, but your healthcare provider before you make any dietary changes with incorporated beets if you're on any hypertensive drugs. So now the fun part, I hope you all able to screenshot or take notes or take a picture of your screen, but this is a delicious, if you don't want to drink beet juice, this is a beet fufu recipe over here. So now I just want to let you know this is very practical, it's culturally relevant, and it helps to modernize our traditional staple foods. So people eat the regular fufu, but this one is beet fufu. So this is the ingredients here. You just need two medium unripe green plantains, peeled and chopped, the beets itself, peeled and chopped, 2 cups of water, for boiling and blending, and a half to a cup of cassava flour to adjust for thickness, depending if you like yours, softer or thicker, and just a pinch of salt. That's optional. I don't add salt to mine. And then this is just the instructions. Just for the sake of time, please take a picture of it so you can see. So this is, imagine eating this delicious beet fufu with your egusi or your whatever green stew you have. So now the continuation of this recipe here. So to form the fufu base, you pour and you blend the mixture into a clean pot, heat on medium, slow mix in cassava flour and 1/4 cup at a time, and stir continuously to avoid lumps. And then just add more flour until the mixture thickens and begins to pull away from the pot. And you can take a shot of this. You can reduce the heat to low and just keep turning until smooth. And you can use a wooden spoon. Those are the spoons we use back home. I have a wooden spoon, but you can also get those at the grocery store. And you can use it to turn until it's smooth and this consistency that you see on the screen here. And you can add a splash of hot water if you feel like it's drying up. The same way you make your regular fufu, you'll be making the beet fufu. And you just keep turning it for about 3 to 5 minutes or until you feel like, it's the texture that you want. And then over here, this is just examples of how this delicious beet fufu is going to be culturally relevant. You can eat with your family, but it has the health benefits. It lowers your glycemic index. So if you're someone that's battling with diabetes, pre-diabetes, this will help, and hypertension combined. And this is what we're all here about today, hypertension, diabetes. It's high in fiber, improves your gut health. Dr. J just mentioned this about gut health. It's rich in magnesium. If anybody knows, magnesium helps you. There's different forms of magnesium. There's magnesium citrate, there's magnesium glycinate. But a lot of times when a nutritionist or dietitian or pharmacist, etc., someone recommends magnesium, in most cases, it helps you go to the bathroom. It helps you get a good night's rest. So these are some great benefits. So imagine eating, get a good night's rest, being regular. Like you shouldn't be eating 3 meals a day and going to the bathroom once a day. That's a problem. You should be emptying. And then also, these are also more benefits of it too, of everything. So you can also take a screenshot of that. But this is just one recipe of the many recipes that me and Dr. J use where it's still cultural relevant, reminds us of home, it reminds us of family members and traditions, but supports our health rather than affects it. So over to you, Dr. J, on the practical tools for the whole family, because I really admire how she incorporates healthy food into her family's diet. And one thing she mentioned is that a lot of times people say, oh, my kids won't eat these vegetables, but she's absolutely right. they're not eating these vegetables because they didn't see you eating the vegetables. Kids follow what you do more than what you say. Like my daughter loves bitter. She'd rather eat a green apple over a red apple because it's more bitter. She would rather eat celery. It's because she's seen me do it versus me telling her, eat your veggies, but I'm not eating. So over to you, Dr. J, and you can, and this is actually very relevant. You have your family member here. You can talk about kid-friendly habits. So this is great. Thank you.
Hold on. So my 7-year-old made a fruit salad for his sister and brought it for her. This is what we're talking about here. But I did not cue him to go make a salad bowl. He has green apples, blueberries, no, blackberries, and bananas. How about that? And then a sprinkle of cinnamon. Okay, sit down, sir. My apologies. I am wearing 10 hats. Okay. So, practical things. We just got a practical example. You teach your children how to eat healthy, they would eat healthy. You find ways to produce, you keep those food options available. If they know where the food is, they will eat it. If you have fruit sitting on your countertop, your children are going to eat it, your family is going to eat it. If now they have to go dig and look for it, then they're less likely to eat it, right? And then additionally, don't buy soda. If you say we are not drinking soda in this family, we don't buy soda and keep it in the house. What's going to happen is everybody is going to drink it. Don't buy the cookies, don't buy the donuts. Just stop buying foods that are not healthy and it's not beneficial to your family. We do a lot of kombucha, even though I'm really trying to get away from kombucha because I've noticed that they keep increasing the sugar content. Even though they're not using the word sugar, they're using sugar substitutes and they are making it sweeter and sweeter. So I am transitioning away from kombucha. But the only thing we do drink in my house is smoothies, infused waters, regular water, regular water, and kombucha. That's very common. And some of the things, or a couple of things that Dr. O mentioned as far as habits or food options. I know we talked about uh, the rice and the beans and things like that. What I do is because I have a growing family, young children, I cook big things of beans, big things of rice, quinoa, fonio, and I just put them in the freezer. So when they start crying, I'm hungry. Normally, when I get off this call or this webinar, what is going to happen is in 15 minutes, they're going to have a meal. Why? Because the food is pretty much already cooked. All I have to do is put it together and create a meal. So when you have, and these things are slow cooked, right? It's not something that you have to sit there and watch. You put this thing on the stove like beans, you forget about it, you go take care of other things. When it's ready, you take it down. What I also do with beans is I soak it for 6 to 12 hours most of the time because it helps with the breaking it down. It helps you cook it faster. And it also helps with the digestive enzymes because we do know that our bodies don't digest beans very well, at least in this new age we live in. Same thing, we don't digest gluten very well because we live in a new era and our digestive enzymes are changing or shifting. Our forefathers could digest them, but we've changed how they're produced and all these things. So we have to work around these scenarios. Same thing with veggies. I talked about how I always have veggies. You look at my fridge, there's always some vegetable. Why? Because the kids love veggies, number one. And number two, because I just make sure each meal I serve them, there's some vegetable incorporated into the meal. So we do that. And of course, as Africans, stews are very common. We cook batches of stews, and it's very easy for you to make a big batch of stew or soup, and you can have it for the whole week. It makes it easy to serve your family. Um, I don't, I make my life very easy. I'm busy. And when I have a 7, 5, and 2-year old, if you ever had 3 children and you have 3 young children, you know how challenging it can be. And then you're trying to run a business, you're trying to, because I also teach and I do all these other things. I talked about community. I don't have the time So we have to be practical. You know, my great grandmother, her only job is to cook, relax, and enjoy the sun under the tree. I don't have that luxury. So that means I got 10, 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes tops to prepare meals. So what I do is I make sure there's a vegetable in the fridge. It doesn't have to be a salad. The kids love salads, yes. But sometimes I saute my vegetables, a little bit of olive oil. That's the thing I wanted to say. I know palm oil has a bad rep. Palm oil is not the enemy. What you need is to avoid seed oils. Growing up, I didn't even know the different categories of oils. That's how bad it was. We grew up with it's either vegetable oil or palm oil. And vegetable oil can be canola, can be safflower, can be corn, can be all these things. You don't want oils from seeds, period. We avoid seed oils, we stick to fruit oils. So olives, I have fruit. Coconut, I have fruit. Palms, I have fruit. So palm oil is actually not as bad as they make it sound. Palm oils are better for you than eating that, grapeseed oil or whatever it is, other option that you have out there. So you pick your poison. The best thing is to avoid oils, they say altogether. But in truth, I cannot avoid oils altogether. I need, like, if I cook the food without any oil, I feel like the ingredient is missing. This food is just not going to taste right, you know? So I have to, even if I just dabble a little bit, the best thing when we were growing up, my traditional food has palm oil. They didn't cook the oil. They cooked the food. When they finished, they drizzled the palm oil. Our ancestors were super smart, yo. So they drizzle that palm oil, fresh palm oil on top of the food after the food is cooked. So cooking the oil is what releases these toxins and now makes or denatures the oil and is no longer healthy for you. If you don't cook the oil, you get all the nutrients. The unfortunate thing is we live in a very capitalistic world today. So our palm fruit is no longer what we use. And Dr. O touched on it. Now people are using coloring, they're taking regular oil, doing some concoctions in their backyard and selling it as palm oil. That's where the problem is. It's not palm oil in itself, it's that crap that we're buying with the label that says palm oil, but it's not actually a palm's oil, you know? So avoiding that, I always, every day we do yoga or Pilates or jumping jacks or whatever, guess what? You're supposed to exercise within an hour of eating, especially with this kind of food that we eat that are high carbs. So you're supposed to exercise. What I do is I make it fun. Again, I have kids. It's beneficial for me because everybody says, oh, how can you have 3 kids and still look like that? Yeah, because I'm here doing jumping jacks, skipping, turning my legs upside down, doing all of these things. Why? Because I'm trying to break down this food and get these glucose into my muscles so they can do the job that they're created to do. So we got to move. We have to move, no matter what it is. Now they say, oh, you can move, when you're sitting in the office. The ideal thing is when you sit for 2 hours, get up and move for 5 minutes. You don't even have to move for 2 hours, move for 5 minutes, sit back down, do your work, get up and move for 10 minutes, sit back down. By the end of the day, you notice that you've actually accumulated 30 minutes to an hour of movement. You just have to move your body. Again, what did our ancestors do? They did not sit in one place. They were visiting one village to another, going to whoever's house here and then the other person's house, which is 3 miles away on the other direction, in the other direction. Think about the things. They never just sat around and stared at the sky, let alone a computer all day, And for me, I make the children join me in the cooking. And that's what maybe Dr. O is also talking about. I make my cooking interactive. If your children are part of the process, guess what? They're going to eat because now they're telling themselves, oh, it's my recipe. I made that smoothie, mommy. Let's see if I'm going to be the taste tester. This is what happens. So they get excited and they join you in the whole process. I know we're busy. I know we want to quickly just do this thing and get out of the kitchen because we have other things to do. But you have to slow down when it comes to these things because guess what? You are training that next generation. According to the public health knowledge that I have, this is now I'm throwing my knowledge in the conversation. This is what we know. Any child under 7 years of age whatever you do to them in terms of their health, 40, 50 years later, they're still going to reap the benefits or not. So if you're feeding your kids sugar, you're taking them to McDonald's every day, you're giving them French fries all the time, guess what? Even if you change their diet at 10 to salads and smoothies, they would always suffer from health indices as adults. So you would see 40-year-olds that are eating healthy every day. They're doing all the right thing, going to the gym, and they're always dealing with some health problem. Why? If you go back to history, you'll find out that health problem came from when they were 1 year old or 2 year old, because the problem that you invest them with, and we don't do it with the intention of hurting our children, because we do it out of love, or we do it out of we're so busy, or we do it out of whatever our reasoning is, right? They are going to live with that for the rest of their lives. It's going to take a lot of work, which is what we're doing now as adults, trying to fix things that happened when we were younger. So some of us are benefiting from the lifestyle, the decisions our parents made when we were little, and some of us are suffering from the lifestyle and the decision making of our parents when we were little. So as adults today, as the parents raising that next generation, we owe it to not just ourselves, but we owe it also to our children to give them a better learning. Like my children would look at, my son would take, that's how I knew kombucha was so bad. Oh my God, mommy, we're going to die. This kombucha has 30 grams of sugar. I'm like, oh no, So now they are reading labels, and a lot of times people don't think about it from that angle, but it definitely does help. You make it fun, you engage them, you teach them. These children are not as slow as we think they are. They're way smarter than we give them credit for. Thank you so much. If you leave me here, I'm going to keep talking, and it's way past our time.
Thank you so much, Dr. J. Like this just shows the passion that she has for it. And she already touched base on all these practical tools here and smart um, snack ideas and ways to incorporate in your family and some recipes and cooking together. So I'm just gonna close us out here and discuss just community empowerment and just some next steps that you can do. So I just you're probably thinking, what do I do next? So it's just that advocacy for better food access is going to be your health intervention that I want you to have with yourself. I want you to have with your family, and just supporting and requesting fresh produce in your local grocery stores if you're in any areas where you don't have access to grocery stores, or even participating in or stating community gardens, or even going to farmers markets, or just encouraging your children's schools and even your churches to improve nutrition options. Or these are just practical ways that we can change the environment around us. And just remember as well, partnerships matter. So working with community organizations like you're here today on this webinar, like AfriThrive, and similar groups, they help actually expand healthy food programs and education, like what you're getting today, where it's most needed. And just know that when communities come together, that's us and people you tell, we can gain a stronger voice to push these policies to increase access to affordability, what we talked about today, and healthy foods for people that don't have access. So just know that, your empowerment starts at home. The knowledge that you have today that you've gained from me and Dr. J, and just building a wellness culture in your family, like incorporating fresh juices, doing it together, smoothies, cultural ancestral foods. This means that you're committed to this as a community and you're not doing it alone. And this can look like, just having family walks, cooking nights, sharing your hydration goals, how much water, reading labels, like what Dr. J said. And, it's just important to clearly mention that we don't need to abandon who we are in our traditional foods. We just need to celebrate them and just modernize them in ways that protect our health, like the tools we gave you today. And then when we do that, we're not just improving our own lives, but we're building generational health. Everybody talks about generational wealth, but we're building generational health that our children and our grandchildren can carry forward. And then finally, the amazing topic that we talked about was nutrigenomics. people of, African descent, we often carry this genetic traits that we mentioned earlier, that we were shaped by our ancient environments, and the food was scarce, so we had that famine and feast, and we had more physical activity. Our heart rate was able to go higher and go absolute highs, absolute lows. We were able to adapt. We had survival dependent on our efficiency and our body. And just know that in those settings, this is where our genes are productive. So create those settings, fast, and then also have your famine, walk around, be more active. But just know that in today's modern food environment, things are high sodium, low fiber, and just full of added sugars, like what Dr. J mentioned, her child read on the kombucha bottle of 30 grams of sugar. And these same genetic traits, they can become disadvantages when it actually was meant to be an advantage for us, where our kidneys hold on to more salt. They can increase the risk of high blood pressure, diabetes, and even chronic inflammation. So here's just the hopeful part, that nutrigenomics, what we talked about today, our genes, our nutrition, our ancestral foods, it actually teaches us that our genes are not our destiny, but food can turn our harmful genes that is being affected from the harmful food that we're eating. It can turn into productive genes by eating healthy, healing ancestral food. So this means that every meal is not just a choice, it's a signal, and it's information, it's a story sending to your body. So when you choose more whole foods, more vegetables, better fats, and just more fiber, you're not just managing your symptoms, just know that you're changing how your body functions on a deeper level. And then families and communities, when we do this together, we can impact and go far beyond from one person to an entire generation. So if you have any questions, you can definitely send the emails to AfriThrive, and me and Dr. J can answer because we're well over time. But this just shows our passion and how much we care about you, your life journey, and your healing. So if you have any closing remarks, Dr. J, this is all I have to say for today. But if you have any closing remarks, that's everything, and we are done, Mr. Simba.
All
Yeah,
I'm sorry. All I have to
nope, go ahead.
um, truly a pleasure and a privilege to be here, to be able to share from my experiences, my knowledge, what what has worked for me, and hopefully you pick something that can be beneficial to you, not just you, your entire family and community. Thank you, Dr. O, for um, making this happen, and AfriThrive, you're doing the work of the Lord.
Absolutely. And thank you both for this super informative discussion. Honestly, I learned so much just like I did last time. Like I mentioned to a few individuals already, we will upload the recordings for both part one and part two of our webinar series, and we will make sure that it is sent out to everyone who registers, so those who did not have a chance to attend can also be able to learn this valuable information. So stay tuned, and yeah, we definitely hope to have Dr. O and Dr. J back in the future as well, because I think this is a super important discussion that we cannot have often enough. So thank you both so much for your time and expertise. And thank you, everybody, for listening in today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.